Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Julia's Trucking Cafe Trucking News Hour. Thank you so much for joining me. This week we have lots of news to get to, so let's get right to it. One second. And of course, I forget my tablet so I could talk about all these articles. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of sync here. In this first article, a truck driver arrested after a lane change sends a mom and a toddler in a Florida canal. Goodness. Florida police arrested a truck driver following a hit and run crash that left a car partially submerged in a canal. This news is going back to the second to last week of February. I know it's running behind, but I'm trying to get caught up. According to the local sheriff's office, a semi truck driver changed lanes on Canal Highway and struck a car occupied by a woman and her three-year-old child. The collision caused the car to leave the highway and crash into a nearby canal. The woman is able to escape from the car with her child and make it to the bank. Both were hospitalized with minor injuries, so it wasn't too far in and didn't get too submerged, thank goodness. The truck driver, 69-year-old Alta Winters of Florida, slowed down briefly but then drove off to a local produce company claiming he had to make a delivery. Really? What if that was your daughter and granddaughter in the car? You know, dude, come on. And in this article, police increased patrols near the Green River Tunnel I-80 crash site. At the time of the writing of this article, they were still working on clearing everything out. On February 17th, the afternoon, they released a news release, provided new details on the investigation and recovery from the February 14th multi-vehicle pileup on I-80 through westbound Green River Tunnel in Wyoming. A total of 26 cars were involved, including 16 semis. Officials say that on-site data collection has been completed, and troopers do not expect to find any additional fatalities beyond the 3 deceased individuals already discovered. Authorities have not yet released the identities of the people that passed away. Troopers also plan to increase patrols around the Green River tunnels and Green River community to ensure safer driving and people slowing down. They are warning drivers in the area to use caution with GPS as it may identify suggested routes that are not suitable for that heavy of a traffic. Work has begun to temporarily move traffic head to head in the eastbound tunnel as early as it was the 18th. The speed limit will be reduced to 35 miles an hour, and delays were expected at that time. I'm sure by now, it's going along rather smoothly. If you've been through the Green River Tunnel in Wyoming, please feel free to leave a comment on how it is going out there. I would greatly appreciate if any drivers out there that went through that area, if you could give us an update, that would be awesome. And police expect a medical event killed a driver found dead inside of his rig. Takes a second for the article to come up. Truck driver was found dead inside of his rig in Texas. I have ads popping up all the time. It's driving me crazy. The truck driver was found at the Golden Express Travel Center on US 81 and 287 around 12:30 on February 17th. According to the local news, 60-year-old Vladimir Malandra of Roswell, California, was found unresponsive inside his semi. Deputies responded to the scene to conduct an investigation, and there appears to be no foul play. We're still waiting for the medical examiner's report, but they expect we're going to find out it was natural causes or some type of a medical event. So it's someplace around Dallas that this happened. And North Carolina cops are seeking victims in a fraudulent commercial vehicle sales scheme. The Catawba County Sheriff's Office is looking for victims of commercial vehicle and heavy equipment fraud scheme involving a father-son duo. They issued a call to the public identifying victims of a scheme orchestrated by Virgil Garrett, 64, and his son Noah, 27, in western North Carolina. The Garretts have been charged with obtaining property by false pretense, felony conversion, say the officials, and additional charges are pending. The charges are related to a scheme in which the Garretts allegedly obtained commercial vehicles and heavy equipment through rental agreements and then fraudulently sold them to buyers across western North Carolina. Quote, these buyers are allegedly convinced by the father-son duo they had a legal right to sell this equipment, said of the scheme, which is believed to have been going on for several months. They seek additional victims to determine the extent of the scheme and the amount of the financial loss that it caused. Quote, we are confident there are more victims out there who have not yet come forward. He's the lead investigator in the case. If you or someone you know have been deceived by these individuals, we strongly urge you to contact their sheriff's office at 828-464-3112. That's 828-464-3112. Or you can email him at astobbe@catawbacounty.nc.gov. That's astobbe@catawbacounty.nc.gov. They want to hear from you if you're a victim and you may not even realize it. If you bought equipment from these two guys. In Pennsylvania, diesel repair shop indicted for deleting and tuning emissions controls. A diesel repair shop and its owner were indicted by federal grand jury on charges related to violations of the Clean Air Act. Roy Liddell Weaver, 41, of Jonestown, Pennsylvania, and his company Pro Diesel Works were indicted for conspiracy to impede the lawful functions of an EPA and to violate the Clean Air Act and individual violations of the Clean Air Act. Officials say between 2013 and March of 2024, Weaver worked with multiple co-conspirators to, quote, delete or disable the hardware emission controls, DEF in other words. They're shutting off the DEF and also punching a hole in the filter and everything to get around having to use, purchase DEF most of the time. And to tune or tamper with the emissions diagnostic systems, they're again deleting it from the computer, on the vehicles to prevent the diagnostic system software from monitoring the emission control system hardware. If convicted, maximum sentence is 9 years in prison, term of supervised release following imprisonment, and a fine. The case was then investigated by the EPA's criminal division. So somebody squealed and turned them in for doing that. I know, let's just say, there are people out there that do that to get rid of DEF controls on their car. And dash cam footage shows 10 people bailing out of a big rig in suspected human smuggling incident in Texas. The Texas Department of Public Safety shared dashcam video of a traffic stop in Laredo that resulted in the arrest of the truck driver and several other individuals. The video was captured before Valentine's Day in Laredo. They say a law enforcement officer initiated the stop for a traffic violation. As the truck came to a halt, 10 individuals bailed out on the passenger side, running for the woods. Following a multiple agency search that included assistance from Canine Unit, police were able to apprehend 7 of the 10 and the truck driver. This Montoya Alvarez, a Honduran national and lawfully permitted status, was arrested for smuggling. So there again, if you would like to, see the dash cam video, it's just 10 people flying out of a truck. No biggie deal. A lot of times I can't play the videos like I always say because of the fact YouTube has a hissy fit about it. 2 truck drivers were killed on a head-on crash on Missouri Highway. 2 truck drivers were unalived in a collision in Barton County, Missouri on Friday morning. The crash happened February 21st, southwest of Lamar. Troopers say that a 2016 KW was southbound on Highway 43 when it crossed over the center line and struck a northbound 2021 Freightliner box truck head-on. The Freightliner caught fire after the crash. Both truck drivers were pronounced DOA at the scene. The driver of the Freightliner was identified as 45-year-old male from Joplin. The KW driver was identified as 65-year-old male from Knobnoster, that's a mouthful, Knobnoster, Missouri. At the time of the writing of the article, the crash was still being under investigation. And a man is struck by 2 Peterbilts on I-84 after ignoring troopers' advice to stay his butt in the car. A man is unalived after being hit by 2 semi-trucks on the side of the Interstate 84 after ignoring an officer's advice to remain in his car. This accident happened February 20th. It's Snowville, Utah. According to the local news, the man's car had broken down while he was stuck in traffic, caused by a jackknife semi. The man approached the trooper working the wreck to ask for a ride into town, but the trooper instructed the man to wait inside of his car until the wreck was cleared. Instead of heeding the trooper's advice, the man walked past his disabled vehicle and continued on foot for approximately 2 miles, said law enforcement. Man began walking east in the right lane of the interstate. A Peterbilt traveling in the right lane was then forced to swerve to avoid him, but struck him with a side mirror. The man was knocked to the ground and quickly run over by a second Peterbilt following behind the first semi-truck. Following too close, of course. 48-year-old man accused of ignoring the trooper's advice had not been publicly identified, and no information was released, I'm sure, until his family was notified at the time. And is this driver going to the junkyard? Driver keeps on trucking with rig in shockingly bad condition. In a semi-truck with totally smashed cab, complete with a tarp on the roof, and a partially ripped trailer makes its way down the road somewhere. The cab has half of its walls ripped off, and the trailer is bent at all sorts of odd angles. Some viewers predict that the driver is somewhere in Mexico, making getaway with this sort of thing slightly more likely. So it's all strapped together, and I figured he was on his way to the junkyard, but he's actually driving down the highway. I figured that would be a little bit of a wow factor for y'all that actually happens out here. And that's why I do this show, because a lot of people don't realize exactly what goes on in the trucking industry. All the stuff that goes on. And people have commented that I take this show very seriously. Well, I do, because of the fact that it's not funny. I know people watch Twisted Truckers and this kind of thing, but people are getting killed. There is a lot of, drugs and illegal aliens being transported in the trucking industry. And truck drivers used to be looked up to. Now it's just like, you're just a stupid truck driver, or you're just hauling drugs, or, whatever the case may be. I mean, people that get it, those are the ones you hear from the most with, thank a trucker and this kind of thing. But what about the rest? What about everybody else? So, in this story, $213,000 in drugs was seized from a semi-truck axle in California. U.S. Border Patrol made a major drug bust at an immigration checkpoint. February 19th, the yellow semi-truck approached an immigration checkpoint located on State Route 86. The truck was referred for a secondary inspection after a canine unit alerted to the truck during an open-air sniff. I smell something. U.S. Border Patrol agents took a closer look. Officers noticed fresh tool marks on the axle head during the inspection, leading them to uncover 14 plastic wrap packages containing 7.5 pounds of cocaine worth about $198,000 and 8 pounds of meth worth about $14,000. The total estimated street value for this seized drugs is over $200,000. The truck driver was apprehended, of course, and the drugs were seized. And that happened right on Valentine's Day. And for those of you that go out to California, out to LA, 70 plus port drivers are on strike in protest of pay change and rising health insurance. More than 70 Port of Los Angeles truck drivers are on strike. and protest of changes in pay and rising health insurance. Southern Counties Express drivers on strike gathered outside the Compton area truck depot in California. They forced us to change our pay, so we were hourly, and now we're getting paid by the load. That sucks. They're increasing our health insurance from $30 a week for me, a family of 3, to give or take $180 a week. Holy moly. That's like, what, 6 times the cost? Yeah, I'd be pretty irate too. Jocelyn and the other drivers say that the pay change was not in their contracts. We work out of the ports. We used to get about $31 an hour, and now we're getting paid per load. Some of the rates are about $20 depending on location. The trucking company released a following statement regarding the demonstration. They're disappointed in the union's decision to strike. The company has explained its financial hardships to the union, and the union ignored our pleas for help. The company has enacted its best offer, which included several items requested from the union. Under the company's offer, many drivers are receiving higher pay, and those who do not like the offer have the option to take a voluntary buyout. Southern Counties Express will do everything in our power to protect our customers and the job security of our team members. The company's door remains open for further bargaining with the union. We're hoping to make an impact on them, and we're hoping that this will give us an opportunity to renegotiate, said Jocelyn, who is part of the union there. And as I was just speaking before about them up at the patrols at this Green River, here's the tunnel here where they shifted all of the westbound traffic over to the eastbound lanes and then made it two-way, like a 2-lane road. Wyoming Department of Transportation opened up I-80 tunnel to 2-lane traffic in the wake of the triple fatality pileup crash that happened the previous week. Back around, Valentine's Day. The speed limit is 35, as I mentioned, and truck drivers should be aware of the 10.5-foot width and 16-foot height restriction. Officials are warning drivers to expect delays. And a truck driver is charged in a fatal 53 vehicle pileup North Carolina interstate. Sorry, this is taking a little bit to get to these articles. A truck driver is facing charges in connection with a fatality that occurred during a large pileup in North Carolina. This happened February 19th on I-40 and the I-85 southbound connector near Hillsborough, North Carolina. I know that connector very well. Officers say that a crash occurred around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on westbound I-40 at exit 261. Then a second crash occurred about 20 minutes later in the same location. These two crashes stopped traffic and sparked a 53 vehicle pileup along the I-40-85 connector. As part of the I-40 pileup, a semi driven by William Crowell Keelam, 44, of South Carolina, struck the rear of a car driven by Ms. Wilson, 78. Wilson died in the crash. Fire department reported multiple non-life-threatening injuries. Local news reports that Keelam was charged with misdemeanor death by motor vehicle and exceeding safe speed for conditions. And, of course, it was slick in that part of the road. You could see, snow-covered lanes and everything. And 2 semi-trucks crashed into a house and the property after sliding off of I-65 in Kentucky during all this winter weather that they had. This happened on February 20th in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. According to the local news, two semi-trucks were traveling on I-65 when they slid off the roadway. Both semis then slid onto the property of a nearby homeowner. One semi-truck crashed into the front of the house while the other came to a stop in the yard. No one was seriously hurt in this accident, thank goodness. Going too fast. And a truck driver's in critical condition following an assault at an Arizona rest area. The local sheriff's office is investigating a rest area assault incident that sent the truck driver to the hospital. This happened the day after Valentine's Day around 10 o'clock at night. Responding to westbound I-10 rest area stop near San Simeon, Arizona for a reported assault. I know that rest area. Upon arrival, Arizona Department of Public Safety and troopers and U.S. Border Patrol discovered 59-year-old male suffering from serious physical injuries. The truck driver was airlifted to the hospital and he was listed in critical condition. Hopefully, he will get better and is back home with his family. And a supervisor in this story is sentenced to 5 years after ignoring driver safety concerns the night before a fatal crash. Company supervisor was sentenced to 5 years after a fatal crash that killed one of his drivers. The Alliston, Ontario crash happened back in 2020, but 48-year-old supervisor was sentenced on the 18th of February. A 53-year-old dump truck driver had texted Ergles the night before the crash. In the text, he voiced concerns about an issue with the dump truck steering. And the supervisor ignored the text. The following day, Garrett crashed the same dump truck after blowing a tire, sending the truck into a ditch. He died in the wreck, leaving behind a wife and a son. He later testified they had checked the vehicle prior to the crash and blamed the wreck on driver error. However, an expert witness claimed that there was an obvious alignment issue with the dump truck and says that the vehicle should not have been on the road due to the poor condition of at least one of the tires. The judge noted that if the mechanic had inspected the truck, it would not have been used that day and the collision would not have happened. The judge also highlighted the egregious commercial vehicle driving record along with poor record keeping. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a high degree of moral culpability for this grave offense. There you go. Because he didn't, as a supervisor, he did not heed the driver's warning and have the mechanic look at the truck before the driver took it and went out, he's culpable. An expensive semi-truck crash leaves the Will Rogers Turnpike covered in eggs. There's another reason why the eggs are so high. Even here in Mississippi, the eggs are like $7, $8 a dozen. Which is because we got a lot of chicken farms down here, and that's even high. The Oklahoma State Patrol responded to a costly crash on the Will Rogers Turnpike. Troopers said the crash occurred on the 18th of February with all the snow. Oops. Crash resulted in only minor injuries, but eggs were everywhere, all over the cleanup. And there was crashes in both directions that afternoon. People just don't know how to slow down. And here, dash cam shows a truck cutting off and striking a snowplow in Oklahoma. Pepsi driver, local or regional driver. You see the snowplow coming, and you're just gonna. And he was past his rear axle if you look at the blade of the snowplow. And he's just gonna go ahead and cut him off. Don't even rotate your head and look out the left window. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol shared this dashcam video of a truck versus a snowplow as a reminder not to crowd the plows. Excuse me. This happened in the morning of February 18th on the Turner Turnpike near Sapulpa, Oklahoma. Troopers say that a truck cut in front of a snowplow, scraping the front of the plow. We ended up working a crash a little later involving the same semi when the driver crashed into the center barrier wall. Yet another example of driving too fast for road conditions. So there you go. So, involving the same doggone driver. What a moron. And yes, I'll call him a damn moron. And 11 people are charged in connection with cargo theft of $440,000 in Nike shoes from BNSF train. 11 people have been indicted on charges related to a large-scale cargo theft incident in Arizona. Grand jury indicted this Castro and 10 others for possession of stolen goods related to the theft of nearly 2,000 pairs of Nike shoes from a train in northern Arizona. The theft of the Nike shoes is part of a larger cargo theft operation targeting trains in California and Arizona, say officials. Cargo theft operation targets trains often cut their air hoses in order to bring trains to a halt. Jesus, that's a little dangerous. Officials say that 9 of the 11 defendants are Mexican nationals, of course. In addition to the possession of stolen goods, the grand jury also returned charges for 3 of the defendants of re-entry of a removed alien and 6 of the defendants of improper entry by an alien. In other words, they're illegal aliens that crossed the border and now they're going to start stealing our shit. And then the guys were removed and came back across. So, thank goodness for our current administration. That's all I have to say. I greatly appreciate you joining me this week. Thank you so much for viewing this video. Keep the shiny side up. And until next time,